Alright guys, so reading update for you all. I can't remember if I told you this before, but I finished the second book in the, I'm not sure exactly what the series is called. It was a dystopian romance I was reading. The first book was called, the second book is called Crossed by Amy Condi. I finished the second book in the series, the third and final book of the trilogy. I'm probably not going to be completing that last book. I haven't even started it because I'm mad at the main character. It is heavily focused on the romance. That's a big part of the plot of the story, and I feel like the main character is manipulating emotions a little bit, and I don't like that. And I'm not invested enough in the rest of the story to continue on, so I'm probably done with that. The last book was called Reached, I believe, and so that's the one I'm going to be leaving out, at least for now, unless it sparks my interest again at some point to pick it up. So I decided I wanted another short read, and I wanted something on my phone, an ebook, so I picked up The Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's a classic and one I've decided I wanted to read. I read it and it's really interesting, and if you haven't read it, I would recommend it. It's a very interesting read. Anyhow, so that's kind of what I've accomplished in the past week since you've last talked to me. And from Animal Farm, I haven't picked up another book yet. I'm not exactly sure where I want to go. That's not true. I did pick up a book, I forgot. I started And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, another ebook that I have access to, and I'm kind of excited. It's my first Agatha Christie, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. I've only a couple pages in, so I don't have a lot to say about it yet, but that's my thoughts.
So, I believe last time we talked I said that I would be starting Rhythm of War as soon as I finished Oathbringer. That's partially true. I also decided that I would be reading Lord of the Rings at the same time, so which is kind of something new. I don't normally read more than one book at a time, but I decided because I have Lord of the Rings that I need to get to, and I really want to get to it before the end of the year, and it's my favorite book by my favorite author, possibly my favorite book. I think today it is my favorite book. I wanted to get to it and at least read it, so I think I'm probably going to be reading like Fellowship, and then I'll read some of Rhythm, and then I'll read some of, I will read entirely Two Towers, and then I'll read more of Rhythm, and then I'll read Return of the King, and then finish Rhythm. Something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But so I started that. I did start Rhythm first, but that was because I needed something to listen to. Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel, he has the first 16, or first, I don't know, he has a bunch of the chapters recorded and posted on his YouTube channel for listening to. So I've been listening to that. I am currently on chapter 6, I think, of Rhythm. Yeah, chapter 6. So I've kind of been listening to that when I have time to listen to a book, but I don't have time to read, or something, that type of stuff. In Lord of the Rings, I am on chapter 7, which is in the House of Tom Bombadil. It's going slower than I wanted to, mostly because I haven't had as much time to read as I would like to. I'm on chapter 7 of Lord of the Rings and absolutely loving it. I mean, I've decided long since that you can't compare fantasies because they're so different. Each one is completely different. There's no, I mean, really the only similarity is that they're fantasy. And it's just, you can't compare them and have a good comparison. So I don't really compare the fantasies themselves, but I can't help but comparing them in some ways, because even as much as I try not to, like, I'll read other books. I have a book on my phone that I read when I can't listen to it, when I don't have my earbuds, or I'm standing in line or something like that. So I will read that occasionally. And I was reading it the other day and I was comparing it to Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, Lord of the Rings is just far above and beyond anything else. And I don't know, I probably shouldn't hold Lord of the Rings in as high of regard as I do, but I think it deserves it. And I mean, like I said, I don't like to compare fantasies, but if any fantasy can come close, Stormlight would be the only one that I have read. I'm absolutely loving Lord of the Rings. I'm loving the environment. I mean, just getting back into this world, because it is very different from The Hobbit. It's definitely written, The Hobbit was very much written for a younger audience, written as a bedtime story, like I've said before, where you could tell a chapter of them to your kids before bed, and then it'd be done and you could go on to the next day. So whereas Lord of the Rings is completely different. It's a massive story told over 1,000 pages. I understand that Stormlight, each book is over 1,000 pages, but Lord of the Rings is just very different in the scale and in the type of story that's being told. It's just completely different than Stormlight, and I really love and respect Stormlight, but it can't get close to touching Lord of the Rings as my favorite series. I mean, I read it and I'm just happy to be reading the book. Like, whether or not I would enjoy the book, I'd just be happy because I was reading it. And I don't know. That's kind of probably a bit longer of a update than normal from me especially, but now you know where I'm at. All right.
One really quick update for you because I haven't made a whole lot of progress reading since I last updated you. The one thing I wanted to mention, I read Animal Farm and I talked about that. I didn't talk much about that, and that's because I did something a little different with Animal Farm. Normally when I read a story, especially fiction, specifically fiction, I tend to look at it with a critical story eye, and I'll kind of break down the parts and pieces of the story to find out whether or not I thought it was a good story. And Animal Farm, I didn't do that. I was reading Animal Farm to understand what the author was trying to say through that. What the whole, more along the lines of what the moral was behind the book. It basically shows what life is in communism. And that was what I was reading it for, was from a different eye. And that's why I wanted to mention that, because I brushed over it really briefly, and it's because I looked at it and I read it with a different perspective than I usually read books. And then just a quick update on Agatha Christie, And Then There Were None. I'm still not super far into it. I have read a little bit more. I'm starting to get more of the setting, and the mystery is starting to come out, and I'm really excited. It's it's intriguing. It's also a very different writing style than I've ever read before. I'm not 100% sure I've read adult mystery besides Sherlock Holmes, which is its own style in itself. And so I'm excited for this. I read a lot of middle grade mystery growing up, a lot of very young mystery. So I'm really excited to keep going forward with this, and we'll check back in with you guys later.
I am now on chapter 1 of book 2 of the Fellowship of the Ring. Chapter wise, it would be 13. That's page 231, and I'm about halfway through the chapter. In my last update, I talked quite a bit about what it is that I like so much about this series, and so I'm not going to talk a whole lot more about it here because you've already heard it. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now. I'm loving it so much. Currently, Frodo is talking to Glóin about how things have changed in the 80 years since The Hobbit, and so it's pretty cool to see the changes, especially since it's been so long since I read these books, and so much of what is in these books is not in movies. I don't think that the movies are perfect adaptations of this series by any means. I think they're good movies. In fact, I think they're amazing movies, but I don't think they're good adaptations. That's a conversation for another time, and I think we'll probably end up doing a video about that eventually. As for Rhythm of War, I am on chapter 10, maybe chapter 9, chapter 10. I haven't read chapter 10 yet, but I've been listening to it, and so what page is that? Because I'm listening to it, I don't know pages and chapters as nearly as much because I'm not paying attention to that. That's page 140, so or 141. So that's where I'm at in Rhythm of War. Rhythm of War is very cool. I kind of have some mixed feelings about how he started the book, how Brandon Sanderson started the book, because the last two, Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, were both immediately after the previous book ended. They started basically right where they left off, or within a couple weeks. This one is about a year after Oathbringer ended. So it's I kind of like it because we get to see a lot, but I feel like I've missed so much of what happened. It is what it is, and it's fine. I'm really enjoying it. It's really interesting to see where the characters are at this moment, see their relationships, because there has been some unseen relationship building during the series, and some things that have happened that we didn't get to see, and I really wish we could have, but I understand why, because he's got a lot to cover in those 5 books till he reaches the end, and I don't know where book 4 ends, and I don't know where book 5 is going to end, but I'm excited to see. So that's where I'm at. I'm actually kind of enjoying I guess what I'm enjoying mostly is having a book that I can listen to at the same time as I'm reading, and pouring all my focus into into Lord of the Rings. So that's been really great, especially since I can listen to the book while I'm doing other things, wrapping presents, for example. That's when I listened to the most of it so far. Yeah, I think that's about it. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.